Welcome to Engineering Influence Podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. And today, very pleased to be joined by our Executive Director from ACEC South Carolina, Adam Jones. Adam is our incoming NAECE President. And for those of you who are unaware of the ACEC Federation, of course, we have 51 independent but federated member organizations, and they're kind of organized under NAECE, which is kind of the group that governs the MOs. So Adam is coming in as the incoming president of that organization, and he'll be taking over the reins from Chris Klein out of ACEC Wisconsin, coming up at our spring convention in May. And Adam, very pleased to have you on the program. Thanks for coming on virtually.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I wanted to get you when you were up in D.C., but unfortunately, we just ran out of time.
Yeah, so Gary and I both had earlier flights than everybody, so I was lucky enough to get my headshot taken. But yeah, we had to leave a little early, so I appreciate you letting me do it.
No, absolutely. So you've been running a very successful MO in South Carolina. You have a lot of initiatives going on. You have your own institute. You're standing up. Really robust EEA program, for example. What's your view of taking a lot of the work that you've been doing at the state level and taking that in with leadership of NAECE?
Sure. Well, I think, luckily I've been a part of NAECE for quite some time, even before I was in the executive director role. And it's all about sharing. And you learn things at NAECE that, you might not think would ever come to your state, and then it does. And so you have somebody to lean on in order to get resources instead of reinventing the wheel. One of the early things I remember was the plastic pipe preference legislation that went around probably about 7 or 8 years ago. I remember hearing that at a NAECE meeting and thinking, that'll never come to my state. And lo and behold, at that January, it got filed. And so with that, I was able to reach out to people that already fought that and get information and also know who to start a coalition with in my state house to make sure we beat that. And so I've been also blessed with a great, every year I've been on XCOM. It's been really great. Last year with President Fiordaliso and Beth Bauer as past president. And then this year with with past President Fiordaliso and Casey. So we have a constant text thread going and talking about what we can do to help other MOs. I guess as my term, a big thing will be continuing with the MO strengthening program. We've got to get a better title for that, because I don't want to say, that's not to say any of our MOs are weak, but it's just how can we make them more successful. I know this is an initiative of President Robert as well, so that'll be a large focus for me this year.
Yeah, that really is a great opportunity for MOs that are out there that really want to up their game when it comes to not only their visibility, but their ability to attract new members. It's an initiative that is now kind of getting its feet under it. Where do you want to take the MO strengthening program in next year?
I think, and again, Gary and I actually talked loosely about this when I had to leave early. It's what does that budget look like? So each year it's ramped up. We had some great applications last year where MOs are partnering together, and I think that's a really good idea. So it's right size budgeting. We don't want, if it's not being used, obviously there's no reason to fund it. But if we have more MOs needing things, then what does that look like next year? This year we have $75,000. I think that we will have plenty of applications for that. Again, we had a NAECE meeting earlier this week and stressing that other MOs partnering together, kind of like they called it WINS. It was Wyoming, North and South Dakota, Nebraska, and I
think it's Idaho as well, I believe.
Idaho, that was the I, right. So they put in a great grant application and I think they're actually including you on them, this to help them with some of their communications and steering it on that. So, things like that, because we do have regions within, ACEC obviously and the vice chairs. But an issue that came up in my Southeastern one was we were talking about maybe hosting a Southeastern meeting basically for MOs and our national directors. Just we get an hour at each of the annual meetings, fall and spring, and that can be, if you have a large MO like Southeast, you might get 5 minutes apiece. So when we start having these discussions, there are smaller MOs that don't have robust travel budgets. Not that I know of any MO that has a robust one, but as simply as getting to Atlanta or something like that could be a financial burden to some of these smaller MOs. So it's like, why don't y'all get together, figure out how, put in a grant so we can do this? Because the old adage, and I think this is where NAECE resonates, is rising tide lifts all ships. So if we have all the MOs are strong, that means the federation is going to be even stronger. So I see other things under my leadership as that will help everyone is implementation of IIJA. We all got those funds. What's your state doing that other states might be able to look into to see how that happens? And we're all about advocacy, and not that we all have our own general assemblies, but NAECE is there to make sure that everybody is got what they need, and we might have tips of the trade to share.
Yeah, and that's a really good point to kind of move into on the advocacy front. I mean, what are the core issues that you see coming up in your tenure that are really pressing amongst the states? I mean, is there anything that really pops outside of IIJA implementation? But is there anything that you see bubbling up from the states that looks like it's going to be something that the group's going to really have to pay attention to coming into the later part of 2024 to 25?
I think, and this started under Joe's leadership as well, but indemnity duty to defend is something a lot of our states are working on. And obviously, that's another place where Nationals help is we got a Minuteman grant to get those excellent videos that we're using constantly. I think Chris is in Wisconsin's right at the finish line there, but it's a very complex issue that when you get into this, you find your members don't even fully understand it. So those videos were great to help that. But I know in my own personal state, when we started working on this, we had some of the medium or larger firms that said, "Well, we just don't sign those types of contracts," and it was as easy as that for them. But then recently, and this all kind of ties to IIJA as well, the electrification and this is also, I guess, the bipartisan act by the Biden administration. But as we're rolling these EVs, the actual RFQ that came out dealing with how to stand up the charging stations had a huge indemnity clause in our state. And some of these firms that normally would walk away from a lot of these contracts saw this as, this is a big contract. We're going to still go after it. And then they came to me like, "Hey, we need to get these things gone." And I'm like, so now it's resonating with the entire membership when they're seeing them not go away, but actually getting larger. And I think states that this isn't even on their radar yet, it's going to be if they hadn't already passed it. And good for those that already have this.
And it's a good example of those. That's a good example of these issues that really might not affect everybody, but then all of a sudden, lo and behold, it does. And it's important to be all over those issues because you never know exactly how far it's going to dive into the industry to begin with, right?
I think another thing following on the ACEC shoulders is licensure. Now there's NSPE that deals with this too, but it's not, for example, a bill here in South Carolina, it's not just the engineers that our firms are hiring, it's their scientists. There's a bill attacking geologists and landscape architects here, and our firms hire those people. And those smaller groups might not have representation there. So I know for our example, one, it helped me pick up a member because our firms do hire landscape architects, and I was the first line of defense here. So I think each state's going to have to, be less dependable on some of the professional societies that licensure is, what their big thing is, and be willing to help them, not necessarily lead the charge, but be there to help because we do have a louder voice. We're talking from the business standpoint on why licensure is important rather than just one person. So I think those issues, I know Kentucky has seen some licensure issues. Those things are things I think everybody needs to be ready to fight. And then, globally and definitely this is, workforce is an issue. And I know in our state, even a year ago, when we were starting to stand up our institute, that was one of the reasons was, ACEC has always kind of left it to the ASCEs and other people to groom the next batch of engineers. But as right now, we can't hire enough people, so that is falling on the ACEC shoulders too. So looking at how we're going to play in the workforce MO wide is going to be very big, and what some initiatives that we can do, and those are things that NAECE can work on together, because we're all facing that. That's something. How can we tackle this and think of it as the federated way, and how we can then bring it to each state to stand it up.
Yeah, workforce without question is an issue that is just getting more and more important for us. I mean, we have the workforce committee which we just stood up. We're looking at a workforce summit with our partner organizations ASCE and APWA, looking at that in the spring. Essentially, we've gone from really focused on the C-suite and the firms. Now we're looking at broadening that out to how do we get ACEC in front of schools? How do we get them in front of students who haven't entered really STEM programs yet, and trying to attract them and keep the engineers who have already graduated into the industry? There's a great opportunity to work with our MOs on that. And on licensure, I think that you're absolutely right, because the success that we saw with those indemnification and duty to defend videos, we're also looking and working with our general counsel, Charles Kim, the Risk Management Committee and Legal Counsel Forum, on how can we also produce something on licensure, because it is an issue which is coming up more and more and more at the state level, as groups put up sample legislation on licensure and try to erode that. And that's something that we're also kind of focused on coming into the closeout of 2024. So look forward to working with you on that. The roadshow, of course, is something else. I think is in late December we did present to the MOs the idea of the state-based engineering and public works roadshow. You and I have talked about possibly having one come up in South Carolina. I mean, how do you think that will help the MOs kind of help attract members, possibly deal with workforce issues, or just bring more attention to the industry in general?
No, I think they're great ideas, because the worst thing and the worst thing that our members are at is telling their own stories. I'd say a lot of engineers are modest by nature, and don't want to scream from a rooftop, "Hey, we did this." Well, when I talk to, like last week being E-week, when I go talk to students, what I say to them is, since the time your feet hit the floor today until you got into this classroom, everything you touch an engineer touched first. And they look kind of, what do you mean? And then you kind of go into it. And I always talk about licensure too when you're doing the same thing. How many of you crossed the bridge? And they're, half of them will raise their hands. I'm like, well, do you think Miss So-and-so, your teacher, or Mr. So-and-so, your teacher, should have designed that bridge? And they're like, no. And so, that adds to it. But the roadshow helps us tell our story. And also, I mean, I think to an extent the broad public understands what engineers do, but do they? Sometimes it gets confused between what architects do or what a contractor does, etc. And the roadshow really lends to what we're doing. And one of the ones that we're talking about here in South Carolina is, the raising of the seawall in our beloved Charleston, on the peninsula. That structure is very old. We know with climate change, the sea level is rising. I lived there for years. Flooding is a huge issue, and when we did a program on that, that particular project, and they showed a picture of what Charleston looked like before the seawall, and everywhere that floods, you from being down there, you see, well, before the seawall and before they did all this, that was actually water. They had to drain it. And so it lends light to that, it shows that, and it'll show not only the public and hopefully up and coming kids in STEM fairs or STEM folks, that this is a great career and something where you can literally change the world and change how people live their lives. But it also shows our local legislators and congressional politicians what investments on infrastructure does and how important what we do really is. So as when we're talking about workforce, seeing, backfilling the jobs from people retiring and everything, is harder and harder, and so that's going to be an issue. But you have to have engineers and engineering firms that hire surveyors, geologists, landscape architects, all of the above, environmental scientists in order to do what we do. And so I think the roadshow is a great way to shed light on that. When we were talking about what to do, like we had different ideas. I know here in South Carolina, uh, the trades have been very much been pushed lately. There's been legislation to change, to make that easier for those types of jobs. And we're all for that. You need those too. But I think what, at least here at home, we got a little bit lost is you still have to have these professional services in order for them to do what they're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. And we look forward to working with you on that project because that seawall in Charleston is a perfect example of engineering for resilience in a changing climate. And it's a historic area, of course, that floods on a regular basis with large storms. And having that protection is significantly important for the city. Um, Adam, there's a lot to do. I think that you're going to have a busy tenure as an ACEC president, but we look forward to working with you. Anything else that you want to mention before we close out, or we look forward to seeing you back here in May at the spring convention.
No, I'm looking forward to it. I'll say that I guess the benefit of doing this after we were there in DC, I got to know my XCOM members rather well. I'm really excited to serve, and great bunch of folks, and happy to represent NAECE in all that we do. And if there's any questions from anybody, I'm happy to be here to help.
Fantastic. Again, Adam Jones, Executive Director, ACEC South Carolina, and incoming NAECE President. And again, this has been Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies, and we will see you next time.